Hello guys, I'm going to be talking about structure of a C program, and in this video you're going to understand how to write C program and what is structures that we need to take into consideration when writing a C program, and the meaning of them, why we write statement, why we always include semicolon at the end of every statement. So I'm going to be talking about that. So first of all, um, and the first thing we always do is include header. So header, that's this header. So each time you want to include header, you have to use arch. So this arch actually means we're trying to include something. So include stdio.h, dio.h. So this is what we use each time we want to print results, or we want to take input. So this is what we use for input and output. So this input, and output. This is where we have the tools. These are functions that actually, this is a library that contains input and output function. So I'm going to explain library now. So I'm going to explain that. So let's say you have a job to do. You're an electrician and you want to perform some task, and you have your toolbox. You have your toolbox, and you have so many toolbox. You put them inside little box because you don't want them to be too heavy. So you don't want to put them in one box so they're not too heavy for you to carry. And you name each of those box. This one is box C, and this one is A, and this one is B. So now, for the task you want to do, you need tester, and this is where you always have your tester. So this box contains your tester. Then you need a plier. You need if you need like wire, like you have some wire you're not using, this way you have them. And if you need some let's say capacitor and resistor and some more things like electronics, you have them here. So this is where you have them. And now you want to perform some task, and that task requires tester. So because of that, you just gonna take only this box. You're not gonna take these two box because you don't need them. You don't need to do anything with them. So you only gonna take this, so that way you don't take a lot of boxes. And that's what we mean by library. So library is where it's just like a box that contains functions. So it contains a lot of functions, and we have a lot of libraries. This one is include stio, and we have string.h, we have math.h. So we have a lot of libraries, and so these libraries contains function. So it stores function. And what I mean by function here is the same thing I mean by tools here. The same thing I mean by tester, where you put your tester, then you put your battery, you put your so many tools, you put them inside here. So this box is the library, and the functions they are actually the tools that you put inside this box. So each time you need to test something, you need a tester. So each time you need battery, you need to include this box. So if you don't take this box with you, there's no way you can actually perform those tasks. So you always want to take this box which contains the tools that you need. The same thing we're trying to do here. So because what we're going to be doing in this program, we're going to be taking input. Even if we're not taking input, we're going to display result. So we need tools, and these tools are inside this library. So we have to include this library for us to get the tools to perform the task we want to do in this program. So the next one we want to do is main function. Is what we do next. Your program can actually have a lot of functions. So this is how we write our function. This is how we write function, and we have to indicate the end and the beginning of this function. So this actually means the end. So this means the end, this means the beginning, and this means the end. So that's how we know this is the beginning of this function, the beginning, and this is the end. So we always use this bracket to tell C that this is the function, there is a function called main, and it begins from here and it ends here. So inside this bracket we have to write all the tasks we want to do. So now let's write the task we want to do here. So declare a variable. So don't worry about this variable, don't worry about this, we're going to be covering this later on. And we want to print this variable. So we try to print this variable, and we're going to include specifier and this. So this is how we actually write our C program. And so what we're trying to do here, we're trying to tell C that this is what we want to do, x equal to 0, or x is now 0. So put x in a little box. So I'm going to be explaining variable. X is a variable here, so don't worry about that. I'm going to be explaining variable later on. So we're trying to say that x is 0, so print x for us. So x is 0, so we're trying to tell him that this is x is 0, so display x. So the meaning of this print function is found in here. So when I talk about this, so this print function is going to print. Print actually means display. That's what it means, display. Print means display. And we also have another one, which is scan function. So I'm going to write that scan function. What this means, it means take input. It's just like an opposite of print function. So it's an opposite of print function. So if print function is displaying, then scan function is going to be receiving. So it's going to take something in. So it takes in, it receives something. So it's an opposite of print function. So after this, we're going to talk about return 0. Return 0. After your main function, you have to return 0, and this return 0 is you're trying to communicate with your with your operating system to indicate that if this job is done successfully, just tell me. So just give me a signal. That's what return 0 do. So it's going to give a signal that when it returns 0, that is a signal that this is done successfully. So if it returns something that is not 0, it means the job is not successful. So this is just to indicate that this job is done successfully. And every time you write a statement, you always have to put semicolon. Semicolon means the end of the statement. It's just like when you write in English language and you put full stop. So full stop is the end of a statement, but in programming language, semicolon, in C programming language, you have to indicate semicolon, which means the end of that statement. So that's why you see that I have to include semicolon here, and even here I put semicolon. So you have to include semicolon. It's very, very important. It means the end of the statement, because if you don't include semicolon, C is just going to keep looking. So it's going to think you're not done writing your statement. That's what C is going to think. It's going to think you're not done. So it's just going to wait. It's not going to do anything. So that's why we put semicolon. So I'm going to show you guys comments. So I didn't talk about comments. So I'm going to talk about comments here. And I'm going to show you guys what I mean by comments. And let's say now you guys can see what I write here. What I say here, this is a testing program. This program display the value of x. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to write what this program actually means. So that's what I'm trying to do, because as time goes on, you're gonna have to write a lot of code, and you need to know, sometimes you can actually forget what this code is actually doing. So you need to write like a documentation where you actually just talk briefly about what the program is doing, so you don't have to stress yourself to look and read the code, because if you're trying to read the code, it's going to take a long time. But if you just read the documentation section, then you're going to know what the program is about. So now let's run this program, and then let's see the result. So you guys see that this is giving me error, and the reason why it's giving me error is because it's talking about this. It's talking about this. So C does not understand this thing I'm writing here. So C actually think I'm talking to him, but I'm not talking to C. I'm just writing this for my program. So how do I tell C that this section is not for him? So I need to tell C that this is not for you, this is just for me. Just ignore this section. And that's what we mean by comment. So in this situation, we have to use comments. And what is comment is just slash and asterisk. So this slash and this is comment. This is what we use to, to ignore multiple lines. You guys can see that it changed the color of everything, so it's now green color, which means it's ignoring all the lines. So if I want to ignore just from here to here, then I'm going to reverse it. So I'm just going to do the same thing. So you guys see that it's going to ignore everything from here to here. That's what it's going to do. So we use this slash and asterisk to ignore just multiple lines. And if you're trying to ignore just one line, just use two slash. So it's going to ignore one line. So you guys see that it's only ignoring this line, and if you want to ignore the other line, just use two slash. It's going to ignore that. But we don't like stressing ourselves. That's why we have to use the one for multiple lines, since the comment I'm trying to make is multiple lines. And also you have to terminate this comment. You have to terminate it. If you don't do that, it's not gonna work. So now what I mean by terminate is like, if I don't put the other one here, it's going to ignore everything, even our code. So you have to reverse it, and just for C to know that, okay, this is not for me. So let's run this code. So you guys have seen that now we got our result. Our result is 0. The reason is I'm trying to tell C that x equal to 0. X is 0. So print x, display x for me, and C have to tell me that x is 0. So it's just like you telling C that x is 0. Now after you're asking him that what is x, then it's going to tell you x is 0, because that's what you tell him. And that's why we have this result. That's why you guys see the result, that 0, which is the result of our program. So in the next video, I'm going to be talking about data types and variables. So see you guys later.